Going Direct Global Reset consolidates the financial coup. Now, the bankers approved, the central bankers, let's go back to August 2019. They approved the Going Direct Reset at Jackson Hole in 2019. So remember when Carney came out and said, you know, the dollar can't last, blah, blah, blah. That was after they approved it. Now, who ran it? So you had the chairman, the former chairman of the Israeli Central Bank, sitting at BlackRock. He's the former vice chairman of the Fed. Remember, he ran the Israel Central Bank, and then he came and was vice chairman of the Fed. He's over at BlackRock. He leads the plan with the retired head of the Swiss National Bank. And then you had Canada, US, and a couple others. So they're all sitting at BlackRock. And the plan's approved by the G7 central bankers. And then the Fed starts going into the market in September, into the repo market, and QE, you know, forever begins. And it goes and goes and goes. And then we have Putin in November say the dollar's toast, remember? And the BRIC nations come together to talk about doing a crypto backed by gold. Meantime, the BIS is building the agreements globally for sort of a basic crypto grid. Still a lot to be figured out. And they start, you know, starting this year, they start building, well, they did it last year. They're building innovation hubs all over the world with groups of central banks. They're in Hong Kong, Singapore, Scandinavia, Europe. And then they basically form a partnership with the Fed. So what you see is the G7 is now coming around. And I think what happens, you have to keep the dollar system going, but you have to accelerate the new. So the new is stalled. The dollar's long in the tooth. And this was absolutely designed. COVID-19 was absolutely designed to keep that dollar system going. It was the most miraculous save of the dollar yet. And then accelerate the new. And, you know, it's funny because I was sitting here in the Netherlands trying to write State of Our Currency, and I was so frustrated trying to integrate all the different pieces, because how do you explain to the world that these guys are going to end currencies? The central banks are going to get together and bring in a transhumanist system, which is so beyond the ability of most people to fathom. I mean, your members and my members are very smart, but it's hard for them to fathom that these guys would embrace slavery to that extent.
Yeah. And I think it would be helpful if you explain to the listeners what you mean by going direct.
Right. Well, that's the question. What did they mean by going direct? And I think what, you know, the specifics, I may get the specifics wrong, but I think they literally want to build a system where the central banks can basically put, you know, the credits in your account, and they can cut out all, if not most of the intermediaries, including sovereign governments, because the big guys are running, they're pulling the plug on us, ultimately sovereign governments. So you end up with a private corporation and central bank system. They put the money, you know, basically in your wallet, and you get to use it if you behave well. It's a control.
If you behave well, it's a control system, and this is the connection to transhumanism that I think people have to latch on to, because what they are proposing, if you go back to what we discussed in the last quarterly wrap-up, what they're proposing is the Microsoft model of vaccine updates. In other words, they're trying to design a vaccine where the vaccine includes a little medical tracking and probably other things. I've been doing a lot of deep diving into mind manipulation technologies that could easily be put into a mandatory vaccine as a component of control. So in other words, the transhuman agenda is they're going to use health as a means of tying you into an AI data harvesting grid. And if you're a good boy and or girl and allow your data to be harvested, then they'll give you the money. So they are literally setting up to use St. John Revelations terms, they're setting up a beast system.
Right. And so you're going from a market system to a technocracy.
Right.
It's managed with AI and software, which can handle enormous complexity and detail. You know, everybody has the equivalent of 300 Stasi agents just watching them 24/7
Right.
because you're doing it with AI and software. But they're planning on literally, just like they hooked your computer up to their cloud and had a backdoor, they're planning on doing the same thing with your body. I don't know if you saw this.
Yep.
Moderna in January put out a press release referring to their, you know, I don't call them vaccines, I call them injections, because by law,
That's right.
vaccine is medicine and this isn't medicine anyway.
Right.
But Moderna called their injection the software of life.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Can we
I mean,
be-
they're telling
Yeah.
they're telling everybody what they're up to, and this is what's disturbing about it. And I go back to something else I've said before. This is why Mr. Trump's support is so soft.